Hi everyone, this is Dr. Kristin Rodier from Student Success Services, aka the Writing Center. I'm going to talk to you today about how to write a standardized exam for graduate admissions. Now that's a really big topic and there's lots of different standardized exams for graduate admissions, so this is going to be a bit of an overview of the process. So yeah, there are many different exams that you might have to take. There's a list of them right here, and some of them require you to take tests afterwards. Like let's say you take the MCAT and you're accepted to medical school, then they'll ask you to take a CASPER. So there's lots of different exams that you might have to take, standardized exams. Okay. When should you start studying? I get this question a lot. And when should you write the exam? Well, a lot of that has to do with when you want to get in and how many attempts are allowed, whether or not a grad school is going to accept your highest score, your most recent score, or if they're going to average them together. You might want to be judicious about how many times you plan to take something. You're going to want to take it with enough lead time so that your score is available for when you want to apply. So you really want to find out how many schools you're applying to and what the deadlines are. Some law schools, for example, will take a December LSAT, some of them won't. So you really need to be careful about application dates and how they relate to when you're going to take your standardized test. You also want to look into their acceptance rates and how they calculate GPA with the standardized test score. So what matters more? How do they calculate them? How do they ratio them? What's the average intake score for that school? You want to research all of that stuff. Again, I sort of mentioned this, but how do they calculate your score if you have multiple tries? You'll want to look into what kinds of entrance essays you need to write or statements of intent. What do they need to say? Should you address your standardized test score in it, and so on. The other thing is specific for this video is talking about what kind of a test you're looking to write. How many sections does it have? How many questions do each of the sections have? How much time for each question? It'll really help you understand the depth of the studying that you need to do. Yeah, we already talked about that. How long is the exam, right? How many sections, how many hours does the exam take? That's always good to notice because, if you can write a 35-minute section, no problem, but on test day you're going to have to write 5 35 sections in a row with only a little break in the middle. You're going to want to sort of build up some endurance for your test taking. You also want to do the math on your exam. Are they really expecting you to finish all of the questions? Do you need to finish all of the questions to get a good score? For the LSAT, for example, getting all of the questions and getting a 180 or whatever the score is really very uncommon. Most students fall in this area right here, and so you don't want to say to yourself, I need to get 100. You need to say to yourself, well, I need to get a strong score in this range. So how many questions do I have to complete per section to get in that range? You'll want to look at the number of questions, okay? This passage here really just says, accuracy is more important than completion, right? You can leave a quarter of the questions blank on the LSAT as long as all the other ones you answer accurately, okay, to still get a good score. So really focus, and when students rush, the accuracy tends to go down. And the other thing is never, ever leave a question blank. Ever. Even on a practice test. Your guess, your 1 out of 5, your guess question is part of your score. You should accept that, that little gimme that you get. I get asked this a lot too. What's a good score? What's a good score? Well, my answer to that question is whatever gets you into the school you want to go to, right? There is sort of no objectively good score. I guess maybe, getting 100, but, but, it is a strategic score, right? There's nothing It's not an IQ test, none of that kind of stuff. This is really just about getting you where you want to go. That's all the exam is. What about studying? Should you take a course? How do you know which one to choose? I don't know. Okay, they're all quite big business, big money, big business. You know, you might want to be cautious if you need the pressure and the routine and the classroom environment of having paid for someone to teach you, so you show up and you learn the stuff. Then, you know, take a course by all means. But a lot of this you can do studying on your own. Here's my studying guidelines. Select quality training materials. So whenever possible, buy only approved materials that use real questions from past exams. So that means if you're taking the LSAT, for example, buying materials from LSAC, LSAC, the law services, people who actually administer the test. You can also buy from places like the Princeton Review or Kaplan or, you know, Manhattan or whatever, as long as they use real questions from past exams. They're not making stuff up, right? Take a course if you need a classroom environment. Even then, yeah, learning happens individually. You really need to study on your own to get better. But a course can be really good for demystifying and offering strategies, and also to use as many free sources as possible. Okay, what does that mean? Go to your EPL, digital content, learn. You have access to EPL with your McEwen. You can go to something like the Learning Express library. They have things here that help you prepare for college admissions tests. What that means is there's going to be some sections on these exams that look a lot like sections on other standardized tests, like logic and reasoning. That's on a lot of different tests. The MCAT has sort of logic and reasoning in their critical reading section. LSAT, this is a large part of that. Okay, and look into some apps. There's things like, you know, MCAT prep flashcards. You know, you can compete against yourself. Get a little bit of healthy competition going on there. The other thing is that the Khan Academy has free online quizzes and instruction, MCAT, LSAT, GRE, and GMAT. These are phenomenal online courses, and I'll tell you why. Because they're not just videos, they actually contain interactive practice quizzes and like sheets to work on and such. It's really something good for you to look into. So what about studying for the exam? You really have to undertake this studying like almost, you have to rip off the Band-Aid in a way, and you have to just focus on yourself, watch yourself, okay? Instead of studying with the, you know, with a timer in front of you, I got to do these questions in 35 minutes, swap time distribution for time tracking. So just do the 26 questions and see how long it takes you. Oh, it took me to do these 26 questions, it actually took me 45 minutes. Okay, and so you say, it looks like I'm going to have to leave 6 questions behind and try to do 20 as well as I can, guess on the last 6, and so maybe that way I get, you know, 21 questions right versus you know, trying to rush and answer all of them in 35 minutes, and then you might only get 17 or 18 right. Okay, you got to be really strategic. Grade all of your practice materials and keep track of your progress. Okay, open up a spreadsheet, put the different titles of sections in there and what you're scoring on them and how long they took you, and really watch your progress over time, because you don't want to, you know, if on a section you're getting 19, 20, 21, 19, 20, 21, and then you have one time where you get 25, but then you're getting 19, 20, 21 again, you know, you don't want to say, oh, I'm getting 25, so I don't need to study that section anymore. At the same time, if you're getting 19, 20, 21 on that section, and then one day you get a 12 because you were tired and hungry or whatever, you don't want to say, you know, oh, all my studying's not working, look at this, I got this crappy 12. You really want to look at an average over time and watch that average slowly tick up as you work, okay? You can always get granular, look at the tests, find what kinds of questions you do well or poorly on. The well ones, don't study. The poor ones, you should be, doing a little bit of an autopsy of the question type for yourself and find some materials that explain those types of questions. Focus on accuracy over speed. I think I've said a lot of things to this point already, but if you're rushing to complete all the questions but your accuracy is not good, then it's not worth it, right? Observe your metacognitive strategy. So you really need to kind of watch yourself when you're taking the test. Did you work really hard on this one question and it seemed completely true that D was the answer? Or were you skimming and rushed and tired and you just sort of said, whatever, this is a good answer? Watch yourself for those whatever moments where you're losing your diligence while you're writing, okay? You really need to watch that you are always kind of justifying answers to yourself. And you need to develop a system for process of elimination. You will want to be writing on your test to keep track of your thinking about each one of those questions. The worst thing would be to read a fact pattern. Fact pattern is A, B, C, D, E. To read that fact pattern, to have them all escape your mind, and then to have to read them again and again. Okay, so here's an example of POE, process of elimination, and working through a question. Okay, so I'm going to model for you how to read through this question. Now, ideally, I would be in real time making all these little marks on here, but hopefully you get my drift. So the first thing you do on a question like this is you read the stem. This is the stem. Some people call it the stimulus, whatever, the question stem right here. The reasoning in the argument is most vulnerable, so this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for its worst vulnerability to criticism on the grounds that the argument what? Okay. So it's kind of fill in the blanky, but I'm looking for its biggest vulnerability. The cities of Old Town and Spoonville, I used to live there, are the same in area and size of population. Okay, same in area and size of population. Same. Since certain health problems that are caused by crowded living conditions are widespread in Old Town, such problems must be as widespread in Spoonville. Okay, so we've got an analogy. They're the same in these two ways. There's this one problem in Old Town, must be the same in Spoonville. Okay, most vulnerability in an analogy is almost always a disanalogy, right? Okay, maybe there's something different going on in Spoonville. I don't know, maybe there's something different going on in Old Town. Let's see. So the reasoning, I would revisit the stimulus here. The reasoning in the argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds that the argument, what? Presupposes without warrant that the health problems that are widespread in any particular city cannot be caused by the living conditions in that city. This is really vague. This is really beyond the text. This is really vague. That city, what? Which one? I don't know. This is a no-go. This is obviously a bad answer. So just cross it out. We're not hanging on to it. It's dead to us. B. Fails to distinguish between the size of the total population of a city and the size of the geographic region covered by that city. I don't know. I mean, this seems really weird because you have the same size and the same population. So did they fail to distinguish between them? I don't know. I don't think this is the right one so far. Fails to indicate whether average life expectancy is lowered as a result of living in crowded conditions. Are we talking about life expectancy? Crowded living conditions are widespread. Problems are widespread. Health problems are widespread. I think life expectancy is a new term. It's a new term. And, I made this image here quite some time ago, and now that I look at it again, I say, I don't know why I would have an arrow there, because for me, arrow is hang on to it. So, I don't know. I'm disagreeing with my former self. D. Fails to distinguish between those health problems that are easily treatable and those that are not. Okay, The reasoning in the argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds that the argument fails to distinguish between those health problems that are easily treatable and those that are not. Easily treatable. Is anything going on in here about easily treatable? No, we're going from same area, same size to widespread health problems. We're not talking about treatability, irrelevant factor. Okay, let's look at E. Fails to take into account that having identical overall population density, ooh, I like that, overall population density, that's area and population. Population density is consistent with great disparity in living conditions. Oh my goodness. I really like that one. Now compare E then. Let's go back and compare. Let's say former Kristin held on to this one. Fails to indicate whether average life expectancy is lowered as a result of living in crowded conditions. Is that really the silver bullet to the analogy? No. If the most vulnerability, that's the silver bullet, if the most vulnerable part of this argument is this disanalogy from population density to health problems being widespread, what if it's the case that they have great disparity in living conditions? That it's possible to have great disparity in living conditions. Okay, so E is our answer, right? So I'm trying to show for you a number of metacognitive strategies. 1, you read the stimulus first. 2, you read the fact pattern. You read the passage, you read it slowly, you ask yourself questions while you're doing it, right? Make note of important factors, causal factors, must be, that's a logical factor. This is an analogy, right? Most vulnerability, that's the silver bullet we're looking for, okay? Ruling out things that are obviously bad, telling ourselves when something is irrelevant. If we're just confused, leave it at confused. If we want to hang on to something, give it an arrow. We hang on to E, and then at the end, we say, okay, here's the 2 that I hung on to, and then sort of let C and E duke it out. And if E is stronger, E's the answer. Okay. Okay, well, that is the end of our discussion of preparing for a multiple choice exam for graduate admissions. Good luck, and go see someone in Sedell to talk about your graduate applications. Good luck.